Okay, and howdy everybody, howdy Dee, howdy Matt, howdy Lynn, and welcome to the word number 152, which is a lot of reading today. That, we're starting off in 1 Maccabees 5, going through 6, 7, 8, and finishing with chapter 9. But beforehand, as usual, let's go ahead and pray in. Oops. Heavenly Father, thank you very much for allowing us to come together and study the Word in the name of your Son, our living Word. And we would just ask for your insight and knowledge as to what we're viewing here as we review these histories leading up to the time of the Gospels. We're grateful for that, and we thank you. Please bless everybody that comes in here to listen live now or in the future. And thank you. We love you. In Jesus Yeshua's name, amen. Okay, first Maccabees 5. All right. Now, when the nations round about heard that the altar was built and the sanctuary renewed as before, it displeased them very much. Wherefore, they thought to destroy the generation of Jacob that was among them. And thereupon they began to slay and destroy the people. Then Judas fought against the children of Esau in Edomia at Arbatine, because they besieged Gaal, and he gave them a great overthrow and abated their courage and took their spoils. Also, he remembered the injury of the children of Bean, who had been a snare and an offense unto the people, in that they lay in wait for them in the ways. He shut them up, therefore, in the towers, and encamped against them, and destroyed them utterly, and burned the towers of that place with fire, and all that were therein. Afterward, he passed over to the children of Ammon, where he found a mighty power and much people, with Timotheus their captain. So he fought many battles with them, till at length they were discomfited before him, and he smote them. And when he had taken Jazar, with the towns belonging thereto, he returned into Judea. Then the heathen that were at Gilead assembled themselves together against the Israelites that were in their quarters to destroy them, but they fled to the fortress of Thema, and sent letters unto Judas and his brethren. The heathen that are round about us are assembled together against us to destroy us, and they are preparing to come and take the fortress whereunto we are fled, Timotheus being captain of their host. Verse 12. Come now, therefore, and deliver us from their hands, for many of us are slain. Yea, all our brethren that were in the places of Tobi are put to death, their wives and their children also. They have carried away captives and borne away their stuff, and they have destroyed there about 1,000 men. While these letters were yet reading, behold, there came other messengers from Galilee with their clothes rent, who reported on this wise, and said, they of Ptolemais and of Tyrus and Sidon and all Galilee of the Gentiles are assembled together against us to consume us. Now when Judas and the people heard these words, there assembled a great congregation together to consult what they should do for their brethren that were in trouble, and assaulted of them. Then said Judas unto Simon his brother, choose thee out men, and go and deliver thy brethren that are in Galilee. For I and Jonathan my brother will go into the country of Gilead. So he left Joseph, the son of Zacharias and Azarias, captains of the people, with the remnant of the host in Judah, to keep it, unto whom he gave commandment, saying, take ye charge of this people, and see that ye make not war against the heathen until that time that we come again. Now unto Simon were given 3,000 men to go into Galilee, and Judas 8,000 men for the country of Gilead. Then went Simon into Galilee, where he fought many battles with the heathen, so that the heathen were discomfited by him. And he pursued them unto the gate of Ptolemais, and there were slain of the heathen about 3,000 men, whose spoils he took. Verse 23. And those that were in Galilee and in Arbatus, with their wives and their children, and all that they had, took he away with him, and brought them into Judea with great joy. Judas Maccabeus also and his brother Jonathan went over Jordan and traveled 3 days' journey into the wilderness, where they met the Nabathites, who came unto them in a peaceable manner, and told them everything that had happened to their brethren in the land of Gilead. Now that many of them were shut up in Bosra and Bosor and Elima, Castor, Maked, and Carnaim, all these cities are strong and great, and that they were shut up in the rest of the cities of the country of Gilead, and that against tomorrow they had appointed to bring their host against all the forts, and to take them and to destroy them all in one day. Hereupon Judas and his host turned suddenly by the way of the wilderness unto Bosora, and when he had won the city, he slew all the males with the edge of the sword, and took all their spoils, and burned the city with fire, from whence he removed by night, and went till he came to the fortress. And betimes in the morning they looked up, and behold, there was an innumerable people bearing ladders and other engines of war to take the fortress, for they assaulted them. When Judas therefore saw that the battle was begun, and that the cry of the city went up to heaven with trumpets and a great sound, he said unto his host, Fight this day for your brethren. So he went forth behind them in 3 companies, who sounded their trumpets and cried with prayer. Verse 34. Then the host of Timotheus, knowing that it was Maccabeus, fled from him. Wherefore he smote them with a great slaughter, so that there were killed of them that day about 8,000 men. This done, Judas turned aside to Mashpah, and after he had assaulted it, he took and slew all the males therein, and received the spoils thereof, and burnt it with fire. From thence went he and took Casphon, Magad, Bosor, and the other cities of the country of Gilead. After these things gathered Timotheus another host, and encamped against Raphon beyond the brook. So Judas sent men to espy the host, who brought him word, saying, All the heathen that be round about us are assembled unto them, even a very great host. He hath also hired the Arabians to help them, and they have pitched up their tents beyond the brook, ready to come and fight against thee. Upon this, Judas went to meet them. Then Timotheus said unto the captains of his host, When Judas and his host come near the brook, if he pass over first unto us, we shall not be able to withstand him, for he will mightily prevail against us. But if he be afraid and camp beyond the river, we shall go over unto him and prevail against him. Now when Judas came near the brook, he caused the scribes of the people to remain by the brook, unto whom he gave commandment, saying, Suffer no man to remain in the camp, but let all come to the battle. So he went first over unto them, and all the people after him. Then all the heathen, being discomfited before him, cast away their weapons, and fled unto the temple that was at Carnaim. But they took the city, and burned the temple with all that were therein. Thus was Carnaim subdued, neither could they stand any longer before Judas. Verse 45. Then Judas gathered together all the Israelites that were in the country of Gilead, from the least unto the greatest, even their wives and their children and their stuff, a very great host, to the end that they might come into the land of Judea. Now, when they came unto Ephron, this was a great city in the way as they should go, very well fortified, that they could not turn from it, either on the right hand or the left, but must needs pass through the midst of it. Then they of the city shut them out, and stopped up the gates with stones. Whereupon Judas sent unto them in peaceable manner, saying, Let us pass through your land to go into our own country, and none shall do you any hurt. We will only pass through on foot. Howbeit, they would not open unto him. Wherefore Judas commanded a proclamation to be made throughout the host, that every man should pitch his tent in the place where he was. So the soldiers pitched, and assaulted the city all that day and all that night, till at the length the city was delivered into his hands. Who then slew all the males with the edge of the sword, and razed the city, and took the spoils thereof, and passed through the city over them that were slain. After this went they over Jordan, and into the plain before Bethsan. And Judas gathered together those that came behind, and exhorted the people all the way through, till they came into the land of Judea. So they went up to Mount Sion with joy and gladness, where they offered burnt offerings, because not one of them were slain until they had returned in peace. Now, what time, as Judas and Jonathan were in the land of Gilead, and Simon his brother in Galilee before Ptolemais. Verse 56, Joseph, the son of Zacharias, and Azarias, captains of the garrisons, heard of the valiant acts and warlike deeds which they had done. Wherefore they said, Let us also get us a name, and go fight against the heathen that are round about us. So when they had given charge unto the garrison that was with them, they went toward Jamnia. Then came Gorgias and his men out of the city to fight against them. And so it was that Joseph and Azarias were put to flight and pursued unto the borders of Judea. And there were slain that day of the people of Israel about 2,000 men. Thus was there a great overthrow among the children of Israel, because they were not obedient unto Judas and his brethren, but thought to do some valiant act. Moreover, these men came not of the seed of those by whose hand deliverance was given unto Israel. Howbeit, the man Judas and his brethren were greatly renowned in the sight of all Israel, and of all the heathen, wheresoever their name was heard of, insomuch as the people assembled unto them with joyful acclamations. Afterward went Judas forth of his brethren, and fought against the children of Esau, and the land toward the south, where he smote Hebron, and the towns thereof, and pulled down the fortress of it, and burned the towers thereof round about. From thence he removed to go into the land of the Philistines, and passed through Samaria. At that time certain priests, desirous to show their valor, were slain in battle, for that they went out to fight unadvisedly. So Judas turned to Azotus in the land of the Philistines, and when he had pulled down their altars and burned their carved images with fire and spoiled their cities, he returned into the land of Judea.
Chapter 6. About that time, King Antiochus traveled throughout the high countries, heard say that Elamias in the country of Persia was a city greatly renowned for riches, silver, and gold. And that there was in it a very rich temple, wherein were coverings of gold, and breastplate, and shields, which Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian king, who reigned first among the Grecians, had left there. Wherefore he came and sought to take the city and to spoil it. But he was not able, because they of the city, having had warning thereof, rose up against him in battle. So he fled and departed thence with great heaviness, and returned to Babylon. Moreover, there came one whom brought him tidings into Persia, that the armies which went out against the land of Judea were put to flight, and that Lysias, who went forth first with a great power, was driven away of the Jews, and that they were made strong by the armor and power in stores of spoils which they had gotten of the armies whom they had destroyed. Also they had pulled down the abominations which he had set upon the altar in Jerusalem, and that they had compassed about the sanctuary with high walls, and before and his city Bethsura. Now when the king heard these words, he was astonished and sore moved, whereupon he laid him down upon his bed and fell sick for grief, because it had not befallen him as he looked for. And there he continued many days, for his grief was even more and more, and he made account that he should die. Wherefore he called for all of his friends, and said unto them, The sleep is gone from my eyes, and my heart faileth for very care. And I thought with myself, into what tribulation am I come, and how great a flood of misery, wherein now I am, for I was bountiful and beloved in my power. But now I am remembered the evils that I did in Jerusalem, and that I took all the vessels of the gold and silver were therein, and sent to destroy the inhabitants of Judea without a cause. I perceive, therefore, that these many troubles are come upon me, and behold, I perish through great grief in a strange land. Then called he for Philip, one of his friends, who he made ruler over all his realm, and gave him the crown and his robe and his signet, to the end he should bring up his son Antiochus and nourish him up for the kingdom. So King Antiochus died there in the 149th year. Now when Lysias knew that the king was dead, he set up Antiochus, his son, whom he had brought up being young, to reign in his stead, and he called his name he called Eupator. About this time, they that were in the tower shut up the Israelites round about the sanctuary, and sought always their hurt and the strengthening of the heathen. Wherefore Judas, purposing to destroy them, called all the people together to besiege them. So they came together and besieged them in the 115th year, and he made mounds for shot against them and other engines. Howbeit certain of them that they besieged got forth, unto whom some ungodly men in Jerusalem joined them, and they went unto the city and said unto the king, and said, How long will it be ere that thou execute judgment and avenge our brethren? We have been willing to serve thy father, and to do as he would have us, and obey his commands. For which cause they of our nation besiege the tower, and are alienated from us. Moreover, as many of us as they could light on the slough, and spoil our inheritance. Neither have they stretched out their hand against us only, but also against our borders. And behold, this day, as they are sieging the tower at Jerusalem to take it, the sanctuary also and Bethsura have they fortified. Wherefore, if thou dost not prevent them quickly, they would do the greater things than these, neither shall they be able to rule them. Now when the king heard this, he was angry, and gathered together all his friends, and the captains of his army, and those that had charge over the horse. There came also unto him from other kingdoms, and from isles of the sea, bands of hired soldiers, so that the number of his army was 100,000 footmen, and 20,000 horsemen, and 32 elephants exercised in battle. These went through Edomia, and stretched and pitched against Bethsura, which they assaulted many days, making engines of war. But they of Bethsura came out and burned them with fire, and fought valiantly. Upon this Judas removed from the tower, and pitched in Beth Zacharias, over against the king's camp. Then the king, rising very early, marched fiercely with his host toward Beth Zacharias, where his armies made them ready to battle, and sounded the trumpets. And to the end they might provoke the elephants to fight, they shewed them the blood of grapes and mulberries. Moreover, they divided the beast among the armies, and for every elephant they appointed 1,000 men, armed with coats of mail, and with helmets of brass brass on their heads. Besides this, for every beast were ordained 500 horsemen of the best. There they were ready to every occasion, wheresoever the beast was, and wheresoever the beast went, they went also, neither departed they from them. And upon the beast were there strong towers of wood, which covered every one of them, and were girt fast unto them with the devices. There were also upon every one 32 strong men that fought upon them, besides the Indian that ruled them. As for the remnant of the horsemen, they sat them on this side and that side, at the two parts of the host, giving them signs what to do, and being harnessed all over amidst the rank. Now when the sun shone upon the shields of gold and brass, the mountains glistened therewith, and shined like lamps of fire. So part of the king's army, being spread upon the high mountains, and part of the valleys below, they marched on safely in order. Wherefore all that heard the noise of their multitude, and the marching of the company, and the rattling of the harnesses, were moved, for the army was very great and mighty. Then Judas and his host drew near, and entered into battle, and they were slain of the king's army 600 men. Eleazar also, surnamed Savarin, Perceiving that one of the beasts armed with royal harness was higher than all the rest, and supposing that the king was upon him, put himself in jeopardy to the end he might deliver his people and get him a perpetual name. Wherefore he ran upon him courageously through the midst of the battle, slaying on the right hand and on the left, so that they were divided from him on both sides. Which done, he crept into the elephant and thrust him under and slew him. Whereupon the elephant fell down upon him, and there he died. Howbeit the rest of the Jews, seeing the strength of the king and the violence of his forces, turned away from them. Then the king's army went up to Jerusalem to meet them, and the king pitched his tent against Judea and against Mount Zion. But with them that were at Bethsura he made peace, for they came out of the city, because they had no victuals there to endure the siege, it being a year of rest to the land. So the king took Bethsura and set a garrison there to keep it. As for the sanctuary, he besieged it many days and set there artillery with engines and instruments to cast fire and stones and pieces to cast darts and slings. Whereupon they also made engines against their engines and held them battle a long season. Yet at the last their vessels, being without victuals, for that it was the 7th year, and they in Judea, they were delivered from the Gentiles, had eaten up the residue of the stores. There were but a few left in the sanctuary because of the famine, did so prevail against them, and they were fain to disperse themselves, every man to his own place. At that time, Lysias heard say that Philip, who Antiochus, the king, who whilst he lived, had appointed to bring up his son Antiochus, that he might be king, was returned out of Persia and Media, and the king's host also that went after him, and that he sought to take unto him the ruling of the affairs. Wherefore he went into all haste, and said to the king that the captains of the host and the company, we decay daily, and our victuals are but small, and the place we lay siege unto is strong, and the affairs of the king lie upon us. Now therefore let us be friends with these men, and make peace with them and with all their nations, and covenant with them that they shall live after their laws, after they did before. For they are therefore displeased, and have done all these things, because we abolished their laws. So the king and the princes were content, wherefore he sent unto them to make peace, and they accepted thereof. Also the king and the princes made an oath unto them, whereupon they went out of the stronghold. Then the king entered into Mount Zion, but when he saw the strength of the place, he broke his oath that he had made, and gave commandment to pull down the wall around it. Afterward departed he in all haste, and returned to Antiochia, where he found Philip to be master of the city. So he fought against him and took the city by force.
In the 115th year, Demetrius the son of Seleucus departed from Rome, and came and reigned there. And as he entered into the place of his ancestors, so it was, that his forces had taken Antiochus and Lysias to bring them unto him. Wherefore when he knew it, he said, let me not see their faces. So his host slew him. Now when Demetrius was set upon the throne of his kingdom, there came unto him all the wicked and unrighteous men of Israel, having Alchemus, who was desirous to be high priest for their captain, and they accused the people to the king, saying, Yehuda and his brethren have slain all your friends and driven us out of our land. Now, therefore, send some of the men whom you thrust, and let him go and see what havoc he has made among us, and in the king's land, and let him punish them with all them that aid them. Then the king chose Bacchides, a friend of the king, who ruled beyond the flood, and was a great man in the kingdom, and a faithful king, and faithful to the king. And in him he sent with that wicked Alchemus, who he had made high priest, and commanded that he should take vengeance of the children of Israel. So they departed, and came with a great power into the land of Yehuda, where they sent messengers to Yehuda and his brethren with peaceful words deceitfully. But they gave no heed to their words, for they saw that they were come with a great power. Then did there assemble unto Alchemists and Bacchides a company of scribes to require justice. Now the Hasidians were the first among the children of Israel that sought peace with them. For said they, one that is a priest of the seed of Aaron is come with his army, and he will do us no wrong. So he spoke unto them peacefully, and swore unto them, saying, We will produce no harm, or we will procure the harm neither of you nor your friends. Whereupon they believed him. Howbeit he took of them 80 men, and slew them in one day, according to the words which he wrote. The flesh of your Kodosim have they cast out, and their blood have they shed round about Yisraelim, and there was none to bury them. Wherefore the fear and dread of them fell upon all the people, who said, There is neither truth nor righteousness in them, for they have broken the covenant and the oath they made. After this removed Bacchides from Yisraelim, and pitched his tents in Bezeth, where he sent and took many of the men that had forsaken him, and certain of the peoples also. And when he had slain them, he cast them into a great pit. Then committed he the country to Alchemists, and left him with the power to aid him. So Bacchides went to the king, but Alchemists contended for the high priesthood, and unto him restored all such as troubled the people, who after they had gotten the land of Yehuda into their power, did much hurt Israel. Now, when Yehuda saw all the mischief that Alchemists and his company had done among Israel, even above the heathen, he went out into all the coasts of Yehuda round about, and took vengeance of them that had revolted from him, so that he had dared no more go forth into the country. On the other side, when Alchemists saw that Yehuda and his company had gotten the upper hand, and knew that he was not able to abide their forces, he went again to the king, and said all the worst of them that he could. Then the king sent Nicanor, one of his honorable princes, a man that bore deadly hate unto Israel, with commandment to destroy the people. So Nicanor came to Jerusalem with a great force, and sent unto Yehuda and his brethren deceitfully with friendly words, saying, Let there be no battle between me and you. I will come with a few men, that I may see you in peace. He came therefore to Yehuda, and they saluted one another peacefully. Howbeit, the enemies were prepared to take away Yehuda by violence. Which thing, after it was known to Yehuda, to wit, that he came unto him with deceit, he was sore afraid of him, and would see his face no more. Nicanor also, when he saw that his counsel was discovered, went out to fight against Yehuda beside Caphlasarumah, where there were slain of Nicanor's side about 5,000 men, and the rest fled into the city of David. After this went Nicanor up to the Mount Tision, and there came out of the sanctuary certain of the priests and certain of the elders of the people to salute him peacefully, and to show him the burnt sacrifice that was offered for the king. But he mocked them, and laughed at them, and abused them shamefully, and spoke proudly, and swore in his wrath, saying, Unless Yehuda and his hosts be now delivered into my hands, if ever I come again in safety, I will burn up this house. And with that he went out in great rage. Then the priests entered in, and stood before the altar of the temple, weeping, saying, You, O Yahuwah, did choose this house to be called by your name, and to be a house of prayer and petition for your people. Be avenged of this man and his host, and let them fall by the sword. Remember their blasphemies, and suffer them not to continue any longer. So Nicanor went out of Jerusalem, and pitched his tents in Bet Choron, where a host out of Aram met him. But Yehuda pitched in Hadashah with 3,000 men, and there he prayed, saying, O Yahuwah, when they that were sent from the king of Ashur blasphemed your angel, went out and smote 180,500 of them. Even so destroy this host before us this day, that the rest may know that he has spoken blasphemy against your sanctuary, and judge him according to his wickedness. So the 13th day of the 9th month, Adar, the host joined the battle. But Nicanor's host was discomforted, and he himself was first slain in the battle. Now, when Nicanor's host saw that he was slain, they cast away their weapons and fled. Then they pursued after them a day's journey from Haddesh unto Gazim, sounding an alarm after them with their shofars. Whereupon they came forth out of all the towns of Yehudah round about and closed them in, so that they, turning back upon them that pursued them, were all slain with the sword, and not one of them was left. Afterwards they took the spoils and the prey, and smote off Nicanor's head and his right hand, which he stretched out so proudly, and brought them away, and hanged them up toward Jerusalem. For this cause the people rejoiced greatly, and they kept that day a day of great gladness. Moreover, they are ordained to keep yearly this day, being the 13th of Adar. Thus the land of Jerusalem, or Yehudah, was in rest a little while.
Chapter 8. Now Judas heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were very strong and were well disposed towards all who made an alliance with them, that they had pledged friendship to those who came to them, and that they were very strong. Men told him of their wars and of the brave deeds which they were doing around the Gauls, how they had defeated them and forced them to pay tribute, and what they had done in the land of Spain to get control of the silver and gold mines there, and how they had gained control of the whole region by their planning and patience, even though the place was far distant from them. They had subdued the kings who came against them from the ends of the earth, until they crushed them and inflicted great disaster upon them, and rest paid them tribute every year. Philip and Perseus, king of the Macedonians, and the others who rose up against them, they crushed in battle and conquered. They also defeated Antiochus the Great, king of Asia, who went to fight against them with 120 elephants and cavalry and chariots and a very large army. He was crushed by them. They took him alive and decreed that he and those who should reign after him should pay a heavy tribute and give hostages and surrender some of their best provinces, the country of India and Media and Lydia. These they took from him and gave to Eumenes the king. The Greeks planned to come and destroy them, but this became known to them, and they sent a general against the Greeks and attacked them. Many of them were wounded and fell, and the Romans took captives their wives and children. They plundered them, conquered the land, tore down their strongholds, and enslaved them to this day. The remaining kingdoms and islands, as many ever opposed them, they destroyed and enslaved. But with their best friends, those who they rely on, they have kept friendship. They have subdued kings far and near, and many as have heard of their fame have feared them. Those whom they wish to help and to make kings, they make kings, and those whom they wish to depose, they have been greatly exalted. Yet for all this, not one of them has put a crown or worn purple as a mark of pride. But they have built for themselves a separate chamber, and every day 320 senators constantly deliberate concerning the people to govern them well. They trust one man each year to rule over them and to control all their land. They all heed the one man, and there is no envy or jealousy among them. So Judas chose Eupolemus the son of John, son of Achos, and Jason the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome to establish friendship and alliance, and to free themselves from the yoke, for they saw that the kingdom of the Greeks was completely enslaving Israel. They went to Rome, a very long journey, and they entered the Senate chamber and spoke as follows. Judas, who is also called Maccabees, and his brothers, and the people of the Jews have sent us to you to establish alliance and peace with you, that we may be enrolled as your allies and friends. The proposal pleased them, and this is the copy of the letter which they wrote in reply on bronze tablets and sent to Jerusalem to remain with them there as a memorial of peace and alliance. May all go well with the Romans, and wish the nation of the Jews at sea and on land forever, and may sword and enemy be far from them. If war comes first to Rome or to any of their alliances with all their dominion, the nation of the Jews shall act as their allies wholeheartedly, as the occasion may indicate to them. And to the enemy who makes war, they shall not give or supply grain, arms, money, or ships, as Rome has decided, and they shall keep their obligations without receiving any return. In the same way, if war comes first to the nation of the Jews, the Romans shall willingly act as their allies, as the occasion may indicate to them. And to the enemy, allies shall be given no grain, arms, money, or ships, as Rome has decreed, or as Rome has decided. And they shall keep these obligations and do so without deceit. Thus, on these terms, the Roman make a treaty with the Jewish people. If after these terms are in effect, both parties shall determine to add or delete anything, they shall do so at their discretion, and any addition or deletion that they may make shall be valid. And concerning the wrongs which King Demetrius is doing to them, we have written to him as follows. Why have you made your yoke heavy upon our friends and allies, the Jews? If now they appeal again to help against you, we will defend their rights and fight you upon land and sea.
First Maccabees chapter 9. Furthermore, when Demetrius heard that the Nicanor and his host were slain in battle, he sent Bacchides and Alcimus into the land of Judea the second time, and with them the chief strength of his host, who went forth by the way that leadeth to Galgala, and pitched their tents before Masaloth, which is in Arbela. And after they had won it, they slew much people. Also, the first month of the 152nd year, they encamped before Jerusalem, from whence they removed and went to Berea with 20,000 footmen and 2,000 horsemen. Now Judas had pitched his tents at Eleasa, and 3,000 chosen men with him, who, seeing the multitude of the other army, he so great were sore afraid. Whereupon many conveyed themselves out of the host, insomuch as abode of them no more but 800 men. When Judas therefore saw that his host split away, and that the battle pressed upon him, he was sore troubled in mind and much distressed, for that he had no time to gather them together. Nevertheless, unto them that remained he said, Let us arise and go up against our enemies, if peradventure we may be able to fight with them. But they dehorted him, saying, We shall never be able. Let us now rather save our lives, and hereafter we will return with our brethren and fight against them, for we are but few. Then Judas said, God forbid that I should do this thing and flee away from them. If our time be come, let us die manfully for our brethren, and let us not stain our honor. With that, the host of Bacchides moved out of their tents and stood over against them, their horsemen being divided into two troops, and their slingers and archers going before the host, and they that marched in the forward were all mighty men. Verse 12. As for Bacchides, he was in the right wing. So the host drew near on the two parts and sounded their trumpets. They also of Judas's side, even they sounded their trumpets also, so that the earth shook at the noise of the armies, and the battle continued from morning till night. Now when Judas perceived that Bacchides and the strength of his army were on the right side, he took with him all the hardy men, who discomfited the right wing and pursued them unto the Mount Azotus. But when they of the left wing saw that they of the right wing were discomfited, they followed upon Judas and those that were with him hard at the heels from behind. Whereupon there was a sore battle, insomuch as many were slain on both parts. Judas also was killed, and the remnant fled. Then Jonathan and Simon took Judas their brother and buried him in the sepulchre of his fathers in Modin. Moreover, they bewailed him, and all Israel made great lamentation for him, and mourned many days, saying, How is the valiant man fallen that delivered Israel? As for the other things concerning Judas and his wars, and the noble acts that he did in his greatness, they are not written, for they were very many. Now after the death of Judas, the wicked began to put forth their heads in all the coasts of Israel, and there arose up all such as wrought iniquity. In those days also was there a very great famine, by reason whereof the country revolted and went with them. Verse 25. Then Bacchides chose the wicked men and made them lords of the country. And they made inquiry and search for Judas's friends, and brought them in unto Bacchides, who took vengeance of them, and used them despitefully. So was there a great affliction in Israel, the like whereof was not since the time that a prophet was not seen among them. For this cause all Judas's friends came together and said unto Jonathan, Since thy brother Judas died, we have no man like him to go forth against our enemies and Bacchides, and against them of our nation that are adversaries to us. Now therefore we have chosen thee this day to be our prince and captain in his stead, that thou mayest fight our battles. Upon this, Jonathan took the governance upon him at that time, and rose up instead of his brother Judas. But when Bacchides gat knowledge thereof, he sought for to slay him. Then Jonathan and Simon his brother, and all that were with him, perceiving that, fled into the wilderness of Thecoe, and pitched their tents by the water of the pool of Asphar. Which, when Bacchides understood, he came near to Jordan with all his host upon the Sabbath day. Now Jonathan had sent his brother John, a captain of the people, to pray his friends the Nabathites, that they might leave with them their carriage, which was much. But the children of Jambri came out of Medaba, and took John and all that he had, and went their way with it. Verse 37. After this came word to Jonathan and Simon his brother, that the children of Jambri made a great marriage, and were bringing the bride from Madabatha with a great train, as being the daughter of one of the great princes of Canaan. Therefore they remembered John their brother, and went up and hid themselves under the covert of the mountain, where they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, there was much ado and great carriage, and the bridegroom came forth, and his friends and brethren, to meet them with drums and the instruments of music and many weapons. Then Jonathan and they that were with him rose up against them from the place where they lay in ambush, and made a great slaughter of them in such sort as many fell down dead. And the remnant fled into the mountain, and they took all their spoils. Thus was the marriage turned into mourning, and the noise of their melody into lamentation. So when they had avenged fully the blood of their brother, they turned again to the marsh of Jordan. Now when Bacchides heard hereof, he came on the Sabbath day unto the banks of Jordan with a great power. Then Jonathan said to his company, Let us go up now and fight for our lives, for it standeth not with us today, as in time past. For behold, the battle is before us and behind us, and the water of Jordan on this side and that side. The marsh likewise and wood, neither is there place for us to turn aside. Wherefore cry ye now unto heaven, that ye may be delivered from the hand of your enemies. With that they joined battle, and Jonathan stretched forth his hand to smite Bacchides, but he turned back from him. 48. Then Jonathan and they that were with him leapt into Jordan, and swam over unto the other bank. Howbeit the other passed not over Jordan unto them. So there were slain of Bacchides' side that day about 1,000 men. Afterward returned Bacchides to Jerusalem, and repaired the strong cities of Judea. In Judea, the fort in Jericho, and Emmaus, and Bethoron in Bethel, and Timnatha, Pharathoni, and Taphon. These did he strengthen with high walls, with gates and with bars. And in them he set a garrison, that they might work malice upon Israel. He fortified the city in Bethsura and Gezerah, and the tower, and put forces in them, and provisions of victuals. Besides, he took the chief men's sons in the country for hostages, and put them into the tower at Jerusalem to be kept. Moreover, in the 153rd year, in the 2nd month, Alcimus commanded that the wall of the inner court of the sanctuary should be pulled down. He pulled down also the works of the prophets. And as he began to pull down, even at that time was Alcimus plagued, and his enterprises hindered, for his mouth was stopped, and he was taken with a palsy, so that he could no more speak anything, nor give order concerning his house. So Alcimus died at that time with great torment. Now when Bacchides saw that Alcimus was dead, he returned to the king, whereupon the land of Judea was in rest 2 years. Verse 58. Then all the ungodly men held a council, saying, Behold, Jonathan and his company are at ease, and dwell without care. Now, therefore, we will bring Bacchides hither, who shall take them all in one night. So they went and consulted with him. Then removed he, and came with a great host, and sent letters privily to his adherents in Judea, that they should take Jonathan and those that were with him. Howbeit they could not, because their counsel was known unto them. Wherefore they took the men of the country that were authors of the mischief, about 50 persons, and slew them. Afterward, Jonathan and Simon and they that were with him got them away to Bethbasi, which is in the wilderness, and they repaired the decays thereof, and made it strong. Which thing, when Bacchides knew, he gathered together all his host, and sent word to them that were of Judea. Then went he and laid siege against Bethbasi, and they fought against it a long season, and made engines of war. But Jonathan left his brother Simon in the city, and went forth himself into the country with a certain number. Went he forth, and he smote Odornices and his brethren, and the children of Phasiron in their tent. And when he began to smite them, he came up with his forces. Simon and his company went out of the city, and burned up the engines of war, and fought against Bacchides, who was discomfited by them. And they afflicted him sore, for his counsel and travail was in vain. Wherefore he was very wroth at the wicked men that gave him counsel to come into the country, inasmuch as he slew many of them, and proposed to return into his own country. Whereof, when Jonathan had knowledge, he sent ambassadors unto him, to the end that he should make peace with him and deliver them prisoners, which thing he accepted, and did according to his demands, and swear unto him that he would never do him harm all the days of his life. When, therefore, he had restored unto him the prisoners that he had taken aforetime out of the land of Judea, he returned and went his way into his own land, neither came he any more to their borders. Thus the sword ceased from Israel, but Jonathan dwelt at Maccabees, and began to govern the people, and he destroyed the ungodly men out of Israel. Okay.
Well,
Exactly. So let's go back to chapter 5. That's 5 for all you Anglo-speaking people. And I didn't get many notes from this. I don't have any notes until verse 67. So,
well, I mean, it's just a narrative. It's like, to me, it's like a historical record.
right.
At this section, it's like what we read Sabbath day. There was more detail, and this one is just more like, this is what happened. This person did this. This person did that.
I did see something in 47 and 48.
Okay.
That's very reminiscent of when they were going into the lands, and certain people wouldn't let them pass through their territory.
Right. Yep. And
Wasn't that Esau or
they did,
Edom?
yeah, it was. And then they didn't return that. They showed their appreciation at not being allowed to pass through. Slew every man there, right? What did they do with the women when they did that? Did they just let them be?
It doesn't say, but I mean, if you leave them be, if you just leave them there, you're basically writing them a death sentence for the most part, because they don't have any way to defend themselves, or you turn them into Amazons.
Yeah.
Well,
or they become Amazons and they're able to defend themselves, or they take them as wives.
right,
That may be where the additional wives come from.
right. And I ask because in the first part of Maccabees that we read, chapters 1 through 4, remember they said, let us do everything according to the law and commandments of Yah that he gave us. And in those law and commandments, it said if they took women captive,
Mhm.
that they could take them as a servant or as a wife after a period of time. You know, what was it? Trim their, cut their
30
nails,
days.
cut their hair
30
off.
days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cut their
Right.
hair, shave their hair, trim their nails for 30 days, and they were to mourn.
Right. So that, and then they say, that Sinead O'Connor, I don't like her.
Well, and if I understand correctly, that when Paul's talking about the head covering and the women not speaking in the temple, that's who he's referring to.
The captives.
Those women that have come in, they've shaved their head, and so it's and they're there in the sanctuary uncovered with their hair uncovered, head
Right.
uncovered.
Right. And then that's why he also says, but if it's not a shame for them to be shorn, let them be shorn.
Right.
So basically he's saying, okay, if it's a problem, have them cover their head.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm picturing it.
Well, and also weren't the priestess of the temple, if someone came out of that, wasn't that sort of kind of the same? They were under that same obligation to shave their head and.
You mean of a heathen temple?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I'm not positive though.
Well, and back up in 20, I just saw I think this is the first number that's listed,
Uh-huh.
and it's 3,000.
Right.
I found that interesting.
Yep. And then 8,000 right after that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else before 67?
The only thing that struck me, and we saw it a couple of times, I think you just meant that they killed every male every time. So this time, like previously, when they were to go into the land of Canaan, they wiped out everybody.
Yeah. Yep.
And this time, it was just the men that they took out.
Yep. And that. So in verse 67, I thought that was interesting that the priests thought, you know what, we better go out and show how valorous we are. And they went out and then they got slaughtered. Well, not funny, but, you know, for that they went out to fight unadvisedly is what the King James says. And then, what's the one you were reading?
That
You were
says
reading
unwisely.
The which one? Unwisely?
Unwisely.
Is that
It
the
must
good
be the
speed?
Greek. Yeah,
And mine says without due consideration.
right.
So they undertook a foolish endeavor to go waste their life.
Well, so was the temple existed, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it was their job actually to guard the temple. They should not have gone out. They should have stayed.
Right. Is this where they were though?
I don't know.
I don't think this was Jerusalem, was it?
Okay.
Let's see. Fought the children of Esau and Hebron, land of the Philistines, passed through Samaria. So, yeah, I think they left the temple. They went somewhere else to do this fighting, is the way I'm reading it.
Okay. I wasn't sure.
Okay. Let's go on to 6 then, since it's a lot of reading, but it's, like you said, it's mostly narrative. I don't have anything until verse 12 on this one.
I was reading, so I didn't.
I guess I didn't get the green memo today. You guys all have that high visibility green. Yeah.
At some time.
In Matt's shirt and in Lynn's shirt.
There
Okay.
we go. Yellow.
I'm augment one of these.
Yay. You didn't get the memo. Sorry.
I'm hyped.
Uh,
Is
that
green.
okay, so in verse 12, is this Antiochus feeling repentant? Where he's saying,
Well,
now I remember the evils that I did at Jerusalem. After after he's getting all, he gets this word of all the bad things that have happened. He fell down sick. And then in verse 12, he's saying, this is because of all the evil stuff I did in Jerusalem. Is this a little bit of repentance, or is he just feeling sorry for himself? Because he fell down sick.
It doesn't sound repentive to me.
Sounds more like a pity party to me.
Yeah.
Because he's sitting there saying, I remember the evils I did. I seized all her vessels and I did this to them and I did it without good reason. It's more like he's more like, not really, yeah. But he also understands that because he did that, that's why he's getting the evils upon him.
Yeah.
But I don't think he really, like...
He's understanding it.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah,
So-
understanding it and repenting
Are two different things.
are two different things.
Right. So then, I don't have anything until verse 30.
Oh, well, I think that leading up to that, they're saying, you better hurry up and do something because if you don't hurry up, we're not going to be able to stop them. They're just going to keep on taking over everything.
Right. Yep. So that
And so I didn't track this really well. So the 130 or the 100,000, is that the enemy's forces?
yes.
Okay.
And so in verse 30, we have the introduction of war elephants. They had been mentioned in the previous reading.
That's pretty cool.
And then it goes into the great description of how they surround these elephants. And, I was kind of wondering, is that where Tolkien got the elephants for Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Yes, because
Interesting.
over in Asia, they did use those big elephants, and that's how they set up their arrays with the peoples. And so they kind of like adapted it.
Yeah. Yep. And that
Is
might
that in the
show up.
Lord of the Rings? Is that how they portrayed it?
Basically, yeah.
basically like a armored personnel carrier
Okay.
or something, But then it makes it sound like they were dumb enough or they weren't smart enough, or it was custom to make the king's elephant a little more flashy, right? As we get further down. So I thought that was interesting, and I was wondering, well, wait, are these Asian elephants or African elephants? And then later, I'm pretty sure they're Indian elephants.
Yeah, it says further down it's Indian, which
Yeah.
because that stuck out at me. I'm like, oh, they actually existed.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that if you trace where the apostles went, St. Thomas, right, the apostle Thomas, was martyred in India. So he got, that's where he got murdered. But where were they told to go? I mean,
Asia, yeah.
they were told to go to Asia, but he was also, if we follow the pattern that was followed by the other apostles, they went to places where there was synagogues where they could teach. So it makes me wonder if that's where some of the scattered tribes went to, which I think it is.
Probably, yes.
And there's actually a really good
Yeah.
tracing of that in, I think, okay, everybody's going to get upset. The Sefer. But it, where he uses the modern names for the nations where people were scattered. So that's pretty interesting. Anyways, nothing till 44 for me. 44 for me. Okay, so in 44, the dude that notices the king's elephant, who was that? Eleazar, says, hey, I can go kill the king king's elephant. It says he put himself in jeopardy to the end that he might deliver his people and get him a perpetual name. How much of a temptation is that for all of us? I mean, surely I'm not the only person that gets a temptation and thinks, oh, look at the glory that you can get if you do this or that.
Mm-hmm.
Or the recognition, the fame, that everybody will know your name. And it's like, wait, I have to stop and check myself. But in the heat of battle, you might not have that luxury. So you just think, hey, if I kill him, they're going to sing songs about me.
But he didn't get to hear them.
Oh, Eliezer got squashed by an elephant. Okay, anyway. 49 is my next one.
It's kind of mine too.
Yep. Okay. What'd you get?
Well, there's no food because it was the 7th-year rest period.
A sabbatical year. Yep.
It said when I was reading online, did it say, it would just say the year of rest. I don't think it said the Sabbath year. And I'm looking in what I'm reading, the hard copy I'm reading, it says a sabbatical year. And I find that interesting that universities have a sabbatical year.
Right. Well,
Or
most
I could
universities,
I could take a sabbatical.
Well, but I mean, they have a sabbatical year where the professors take off and study or write.
Mm-hmm.
I find that really interesting that they picked that up.
Right. Well, that was because they all started as seminaries, theological colleges, right? Harvard, Yale, et cetera, Oxford.
Interesting. But even some of the some of them that were not seminaries, they still, I guess that tradition just passed down.
Well, yeah, if you got a good thing.
Yeah. I
I'm going
can
to
take a year off and keep my job.
Yeah, year off with pay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, that was it. And then in 59, I found that interesting. You know what? We've pretty much been slaughtered, so I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and let them follow the law of their God. Here's the way I'm reading it. Okay, we give up.
Let them live the way they want to live. Leave them alone.
Yeah. So they got humbled a bit.
By a
What
not
about,
very big force. By a not very big group of people.
Yeah. What was that, Matt? What'd you say, Matt?
He's struggling.
Uh-oh. Okay, let's
say,
go to
51 and 52, where it talks about the engines.
yes, the siege engines.
What are those?
They're like the mobile towers.
They're like catapults and stuff.
Yeah, you got catapults. What are the other ones? Trebuchets. Those are later.
Probably some battering rams and.
Yep.
But I find them interesting that you're using a sort of kind of modern term.
Right. Well, I think they just translated it. Got to remember this was translated in 1500s. In order to get it in time for publishing in 1611.
Well, they didn't have. Apparently, they did not have modern engines, or what we would consider engines.
Right. No, but they're still using that terminology. It's something that you can store energy in it for a different purpose. Is how they would look at it scientifically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to chapter 7. Let's see, where are we? When I say we, I mean where am I on the page? Okay.
Wait.
Okay, you want to go back?
Well, before we go on, because we were talking about the sabbatical year, And then some
Yeah.
said the 7th. But then when I get down to 53, it said because they had no food in storage because it was the 7th year.
Right.
So do the other ones say that too?
It says a year of rest.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so 7, verse 1. Enter Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, we get a kind of better insight as to where we are on the timeline
Mhm.
for that. I mean, not the timeline for this, but the timeline in world history because of the way it's identifying how they go through the Senate and everything. So, and then I don't have anything until verse 21. Anything before that?
Mine's further down.
Okay. So in verse 21, here we see the first mention of somebody vying for the position of high priest.
Mm.
They're saying, I want to be the high priest. It's not, this is the son of 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 Aaron. This is, I'm going to be the high priest. This is someone that wants power of that position. And later in Maccabees, we're going to see a lot of gold and silver flung around for the high priesthood position, or the high priest position. And that, and then I don't have anything else for the rest of this chapter. But this is Alcimus that's trying to, he says, I can be the high priest.
I had highlighted in my reading verse 37.
Uh-huh.
It said, "You choose this house to bear your name."
Yep. And didn't we kind of see that with Ezra and Nehemiah? Where he says, oh, okay, this is the way it's going to be. Told Ezekiel how it was going to be laid out. Okay. Yeah. What about for the rest of the chapter?
47. They took out Nicanor, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
They were taking him out.
Now, what's the purpose of his right hand? Why did they take his right
I
hand?
don't know.
I mean,
Well,
he's already dead.
It said because he had
Stretched out.
stretched it out, so I guess that's a sign of pride.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And so
Or
they took
taking
it
something that
because
doesn't
pride.
belong to you. It's like stealing something. It's like, we're going to cut your hand off because you stole something. To take something that belong to you. So
Very
that's how I look at it. So why do you suppose they cut his head off?
to put it on a pike
Yeah.
as a sign,
Whew.
like when
Yes,
you would
and everybody celebrated. It's like, yes, yes.
get going through to Comanche land. Okay, let's go to chapter 8 here. And again, verse 1. Just the way it starts out. Now Judas heard of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men. So he's pretty smart here. Now, we're kind of seeing a shift as well, because before, remember in chapters 1 through 4, they're putting on sackcloth, they're putting dust on their head, they're praying for deliverance to win these battles. Somewhere along the way, that fell by the wayside. And they started putting trust in arms. And now here they are, seeking out Rome to make an alliance with them.
I found that interesting, that this was sort of kind of like they just brought their own demise or destruction in a way. They've just put that what's the word I'm trying to burden on themselves that by the time Yeshua shows up, they're wanting out from under it.
Yeah, they're basically trading one invader for another.
Right.
And yeah, by the time, if you remember when we did the Republic series, that, about the same time period. This is when, back in Rome, things are starting to get to a point where they're accepting. Well, there's great corruption there and out about their they would call it a country, and much unrest, which is what we're kind of getting a firsthand account of here.
Well, my next comment's in 23. So.
Okay, so just wanted to point out that in verses 15 and 16, it describes the Republic of Rome. Right? They made themselves a senate house wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people to the end that they might be well ordered, and that they committed their government to one man every year, that's consul, remember, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one man, and that there was neither envy nor emulation among them. So, very interesting.
So that's how it starts.
Yep. And they said, you know what? That's what we need here. People that aren't going to lift themselves up to be worshipped. Where everybody is sovereign unto themselves. Hey, wait a minute. Where have we heard that? Okay. So, and then, I'm sorry, who was it next? Was 27?
23.
23.
Good fortune to the Romans. And what that reminds me of is we have no king but Caesar.
Ah, very interesting. Yep. Because in mine it says, good success be to the Romans.
That just struck me. I was like, to me, that's what that is.
Yep. And then interesting too, because it says by sea and by land forever. So what do we have with the beast?
By sea and by land.
The first one rises up out of the sea. The second one comes out of the earth.
And I find it interesting. One of the messengers, one of the angels in Revelation, he has 1 foot on the land and 1 foot in the sea.
Yep.
So taking dominion over both.
Yeah. Quite interesting. What else do we have here? Anything else for 8? So they make this alliance with Rome. And then it kind of falls apart in chapter 9.
Not surprisingly.
So, in this chapter, Judas gets slain, or Judah, or Yehuda in Matt's version. And like you said, it's kind of a running
Narrative.
talking about the way this goes.
I find it at 13. I found that interesting in 13. All right. Has anybody else got anything before 13?
Nope. But yeah, that's interesting.
The
whole
earth
shook at the noise of the armies.
It reminds me of the Wall of Jericho.
Yep. Now, think about just like when a train goes by. I mean, I'm a mile from the train tracks, and it'll sometimes vibrate the house.
Or the helicopter's too low.
Yeah.
I
I'm
felt
in a
it was out
helicopter
there
path.
something, though.
I'm in a helicopter path. I've got med flight.
Yeah, I do too.
And I mean, it'll rattle the windows when it goes by, goes over, because it's low. I mean, I'm like walking distance of the hospital. So when it goes low and they take off, it just rattles the whole house.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So Judas gets killed. The rest of the people that were with him take off after the 3,000 left. Before that. And then all Israel not celebrates, but they hold a mourning for him. And then in verse 24, this is kind of strange. In those days also, there was a very great famine, by reason whereof the country revolted and went with them. And it's interesting because the Bacchides dude chooses the wicked man to go with him. Now, the way they make that sound, is that he said, "Bring me all the wicked men." But I think it's just he picked people that agreed with his goals or whatever.
Well, and just think about our government when we change national leaders.
Right.
What did they do?
So
They do this. They do the same thing.
Yep. And it's interesting too, because when you have a great famine, the revolt follows. And what do we see now? People are saying they're going to put us into an intentional famine because they were destroying the meat crops or the meat herds. They paid farmers not to plant food.
Yep. They're trying. They're trying everything they can.
Yeah. Something's coming. Okay. And
And I wonder if they're sitting there going, "What's it going to take? What have we got to do to get this going?"
yeah. Well, I think that is a great possibility. That they're like, wow, man, how much further can we push these people?
Yeah.
Other countries probably would have been all over it already. Okay, so Jonathan takes over and he starts doing some fighting. Now, what's this marriage party that they ambush?
The daughter of one of the great nobles of Canaan.
Yeah.
Is that the Jamboree of Janus and Jamboree?
I don't believe so, but he might be named after him. Right? You're talking about the ones that withstood Moses?
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
He's pretty old. Okay, so yeah,
So the sons of Jamboree were making. So it's a descendant of Jamboree.
Right.
The sons of Jamboree were making a great wedding.
Yep. And then down in 54 and 55, Alcimus, the dude that wanted to be high priest, right? It doesn't say he became high priest, but he wanted to be. So he pulls down the walls of the inner court in the sanctuary and then gets stricken with a palsy.
Don't mess with the temple.
And then he dies. And he's dead.
Yep. Well, he was bad. He was leading evil people.
Yeah. And so then we go, we got this back and forth fighting again. And there's nothing really big that happens that I see for the rest of this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have something in 58 and something in 69.
Okay.
And I didn't hear it, and it could have been in there, and I just missed it.
Okay.
In 58, it said, then all of those who disregarded the law plotted. And in 69, who disregarded the law, who had advised him to come into the country. I don't think it was in the reading.
Interesting. Yeah. No, it didn't say that. Have it worded like that here.
Yeah.
So that, yeah, and I was going to say too earlier, I forgot about it, but it sounds like now that they have peace from the outside, this civil war is brewing.
Right.
Yeah. And the lawless plotted.
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
it's not on the KJV. It's not on the KJV online.
Nope.
So that's interesting.
Must be the Greek then.
So why did they translate it in such a manner?
I don't know.
And all the laws plotted and said. Yep, they sure didn't want them living in peace, did they?
They didn't. Okay, so that wraps this up, it looks like. And thank you, Dee. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Lynn, for reading.
Very
Let
interesting.
everybody get to their dinner before it gets cold. And we will be back on Sabbath with the next 5 chapters, which are all very short if you want to read. Okay, I'm not being honest. These are long chapters.
They're very long.
So anyways, Matt's going to use sign language now for like, share, subscribe. Okay.
Just do this, Matt.
Yeah. All right. So everybody, thank you very much. I'm glad you're here. We love you all, and we will talk to you very soon. Bye.
Bye.